All right, so I think we're going to begin now. But welcome to the General Awareness Track presentation. Our topic is Life as a Student Security Analyst.
My name is Gus Paddock. I'm a junior here at UO. I've been a student security analyst for about 5 months now, and I'm majoring in data science.
And my name is Geest. I'm a senior here, also majoring in data science, and I've been a student security analyst for a little over 1 year.
The role of student security analyst has kind of 4 subdomains, and I'm going to talk about the first 2, the CSOC analyst and compliance. CSOC is kind of more of our daily responsibilities, and that had a lot to do with the World Athletic Championships when they were happening here in July. And compliance is definitely our endpoint, our user security, kind of DMCA copyright issues, and other sort of policy matters.
And the remaining 2 rotations are incident response and DevOps. And incident response usually deals with malware and compromised systems, where DevOps is like software development projects and automation.
Okay, so the CSOC, they have our daily responsibilities. It's a lot of continual checking and monitoring of our network. And that starts with Teams, which is kind of a remnant from the COVID era, but it's still very useful as a form of communication. We still have some people who are working remote, so it makes sense to talk. There we also see alerts or specific anomalies that would differentiate like a specific workflow from its day-to-day process. That's followed by VPN checks, which is making sure that IPs connecting to campus wireless through VPN aren't doing that from a suspicious location in a suspicious amount of time or with some sort of suspicious connection data. The fun part, in my opinion, is account compromise, which is it's a lot of forensic work. There's a lot of research. There we sort of cross-reference our traffic databases, the UO network history, the pwn status of a particular account if their passwords have been exposed, and real-world data like Twitter or LinkedIn or Instagram to see if users' traffic is authentic on the network for where they are at that time. And then finally there's phishing, which I think has a unique flair with a university, that being university freshmen, considering that they are kind of joining into a larger world. They're not quite sure about phishing or the bounds or how people might try to trick them now that they're young adults, putting themselves out there. There are a lot of user-reported incidents, and sometimes we have to tell people that they were phished, which is always kind of a unique interaction. You would be surprised how many students would love to be an administrative assistant getting $300 to $400 a week. There we kind of have to document, confirm that it is in fact phishing, make sure that more people are not being affected by the same incident, and then logging it to our phish tank, where our campaigns are stored for people to see, just in case that they receive a similar email later on in time. The World Athletic Championships were a very unique circumstance for the Information Security Office. I came in right away, and it was instantly training for the World Athletic Championships. Before even they began, we were preparing because we knew that as a high-profile event, that we would have a target on our back. In 2017, the same event in London had an attack from the Fancy Bear Russian hacker group. And that exposed athlete medical and personal data. So we knew that the stakes were real, that this was the real deal. We had world athletes here, we had international fans, we had media, we had people broadcasting and watching in from online. So we had to make sure that everything ran very smoothly. While not much could be done to stop a Polish athlete from downloading a virus on their iPhone, we did have to manage network subnets in terms of infrastructure for the host broadcasts, for the right holders broadcasts, event management, and photographers were all interest groups that needed to maintain a stable network connection throughout the whole event. And we had different shifts. We started at 5 in the morning, sometimes ran until 10 around noon, and sometimes we'd be working as late as 10 p.m. So that was very unique to have that sort of work time scale during the summer. And currently, my role in the office is security compliance, which I just began, but as of right now, it definitely seems like the nitty-gritty and the fine detail information. It seems like if everybody did what compliance asked, the other people's work would be cut by about half, which can be a little frustrating, but understandable. It's very people-facing, so the goal is to convince people that 15 minutes of occasional effort is in fact worth the effort in exchange for greater overall online security. And currently, right now, that manifests in things like the student government is putting on a street fair outside, which some of you guys may have seen. And we do have a table, although today it was canceled for air quality concerns, that just interacts with students and the public to make sure that they know the resources and habits that can keep them the most safe online.
So next I'll be talking about the incident response rotation, which is definitely in competition for one of my favorite rotations because of the problem solving and teamwork associated with each step of the incident response process. So it usually begins with us receiving an alert from one of our various intrusion detection systems that we use to monitor campus network health, or it comes from like a reassignment from a full-time staff member. For investigating the alerts, we use various indicators of compromise, such as PCAP text files, which are packet capture text files, system information, and then malware scanners and sandboxes, just to try to find more information about the specific malware and like what kind of damage it can do to someone's information or someone's system. But basically, you just try to collect as much info as we can to piece together what is happening with the compromised systems. So after the information is gathered, what typically happens is that there's a discussion around the incident to determine if the alert is a real true positive, and if it is, what would the appropriate remedial actions would be. And I think that this step in particular really highlights the value of the incident response process because it requires a lot of like peer-to-peer discussion, and also if we haven't seen the problem before or the incident is a little confusing, then we usually go to ask questions to the full-time staff members, and every time that happens I always learn a whole lot about like the new incident. So this then leads us to incident remediation, which consists of reaching out to appropriate IT departments responsible for like the system or the end user, and basically supplying them all the information that we've gathered in order for them to take the most appropriate remedial actions or like and like wipe the malware. And then my other favorite rotation, and one that was just recently implemented, is DevOps, which mostly consists of developing and sustaining the software that we rely on for like incident remediation, intrusion detection, alerting to suspicious behavior, and things along those lines. So one example of a DevOps project that I'm currently developing and that I've been working on over the summer is this heat map, which visualizes campus network and system vulnerabilities, and it color codes the buildings according to VPRs, which stands for Vulnerability Priority Rating. And obviously you can see that all the buildings are green right now because that wouldn't be the type of information that we want to just give out randomly in a presentation. But eventually these buildings will be color-coded according to the concentration of vulnerable systems that are in each building. So it involved a lot of data mining and cleaning, combining relevant data, and the ultimate goal was to create an efficient tool at being able to quickly establish our overall campus cyber health, while also being a useful tool for student security analysts specifically, in our line of work. So it like provides specific system information if you drill down into the map, and it also has like links to our ticketing system where you can find updates on specific vulnerabilities in those systems. And then I also wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about my experience being currently the only female student security analyst. And since it's the main theme of the event, I thought I was in a pretty unique position to talk about this. So this was just a visualization, and I think you've heard this statistic earlier today if you attended some of the talks that occurred. But according to an ISU squared survey, and this is a worldwide statistic, in 2020 there was about 30% of a female workforce in cybersecurity compared to 70% male, which is actually an increase from 2019, which was 24% female and 76% male. So we definitely are making some progress. But personally, I'm very lucky to have awesome coworkers where I've never really been in a position where I felt discriminated against for my gender. But I think another aspect of that is like familiarity, being among the gender minority in a room, especially being in like a tech-related major. It's kind of been a constant in college. So there definitely is an aspect of imposter syndrome, which I know most people beginning in cybersecurity feel. But I think for women, there's also this added level of lack of role models and lack of looking at other people's kind of like career paths and seeing some of the options that can be like represented by women. So obviously, I'm not a political science major, and I don't develop any policy, so I don't really have the answers to the solutions. But some things that I could see helping in like my case or looking at my friends' experiences is that kind of just overcoming the initial intimidation factor in cybersecurity. And that's done pretty well with like outreach programs like Women in Computer Science and Women Who Code. But I think the reason why that there should be less of a gender discrimination in cybersecurity, and like one of the biggest takeaways that I've learned at my time at the CSOC is just like the amount of diversity of problems that you are confronted with working in like a student security analyst role. And obviously that would require a diversity of viewpoints, which could then lead to a diversity of solutions and would create like a overall more informed cybersecurity workplace. So these are just a couple of our major takeaways from our time at the CSOC. But one of the things that surprised me the most about cybersecurity was, and something that our job highlights really well, is just the breadth of topics and knowledge that occur in this field and like that you have to be somewhat proficient with. Like you have things all the way from policy making to pen testing and software development. And so really a variety of skills, and it requires a variety of skill sets. And then with a lot of work, eventually you become somewhat proficient along these topics, but you can always be better and you can always learn more, especially in cybersecurity. But becoming somewhat proficient really instills a sort of self-confidence and an I can do this attitude that you take with you in all of your future endeavors.
I definitely agree with Julia about the self-confidence aspect. I think that the biggest thing that this job has taught me is making decisive action on somewhat uncertain evidence, as long as you have the evidence to back it up. In addition, it is not only essential, but very helpful to collaborate with other people when working on a problem that you might see as pretty small. You won't always see it, like Julia was saying, and a diversity of viewpoints does, in fact, really help come to the strongest solution. School work and eventually school life or work life is always something that is going to need to be revisited and checked throughout everybody's life. And I think that working here at this job and trying to balance that with school has been a very good introduction to that sort of mentality, that mindset, planning, and the like. And then finally, you are always learning, even about things that you thought that you knew. So yeah, thank you. That is our presentation. We will now take questions. Yes.
Where do you get started? Where's it's like a lot. So where do you, if you could go back right now, like change one way to be introduced to what you guys did, what would you do?
I think a common thing that's said is that people always wish that they started earlier, and that's definitely true. I mean, if I had 5 more years experience, like maybe if I started cybersecurity in high school, it would definitely be helpful. But one of the things to keep in mind is that the soonest you can start is now. So if you're like looking for where to get started, you can like reach out to other people in the position, or just there's a lot of like online workshops that you can do that teach you about cybersecurity.
I totally agree. You definitely may not feel like that you're qualified for it. The imposter syndrome is very real, but there's only one way to learn, and that is by doing it. So it's just jumping in however you can and accepting that you might not be the best at it at the beginning.
Well, I think some of the most direct role models are definitely like the full-time staff members like John and Duncan, who've like been in cybersecurity for a while and are very knowledgeable about the topics that Gus and I are still learning about. So that's definitely some of the people that we like come to first with our questions and problems.
I would definitely second the John statement. I feel like he's somebody who went to college for subjects unrelated to cybersecurity and was able to learn and become a master at these things, and that's something that I look up to a lot. I think that people that are able to expand their horizons versus what they've just spent most of their time studying are very admirable.
I'm curious how your data science focus in your majors and your work at the CSOC fit together or maybe complement one another.
I think I'm still kind of waiting for my turn to shift into DevOps, which I've been very anxious for. But it is useful in terms of a mindset. Assessing probability, assessing like statistical chance of things has been very useful for me, but it's definitely been at a more higher level.
Yeah, so our degree program is like 1/3 computer science, 1/3 statistics, and then like a domain focus. And so the computer science obviously has like direct implications for cybersecurity. But the statistics is also like an important part. One of the major things that we do in our classes is like using Jupyter notebooks to like parse data in return statistics that you want. So I parsed some of the data for like the phishing campaign that we did a few months ago, and seeing like which students clicked on this, if there's any like correlation to like department or things along those lines. So definitely a place for data science and cybersecurity.
All right, one more question for you.
He's a shill. He says, go ahead.
One more question I have for you is, during the World Athletic Championship, I was there, but I didn't participate in cyber, but just helping with the whole organization. It exposed us to the world, with all these diversity of people coming from outside. From your experience, did that expose you to a different way of thinking about cyber? And if there is some lessons that you learned, how do you think you could apply those lessons in an organization which is global?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest takeaways from the World Athletic Championships is that cybersecurity does have like very global implications, and that some of the things that can occur with just like one specific network or one specific system have implications that could affect millions of people, which was definitely apparent with cybersecurity the World Athletic Championships, since people were coming from all over the country.
I also think in terms of technology access, I remember seeing a map in terms of the most popular smartphone, and Apple is very dominant in places like Europe or here. Meanwhile, Android, Samsung is something that you see more globally. So it's important to understand that assumptions that I might have about the common person using the network from my reference are not true when you encounter yourself with the entire world.
So you mentioned Jupyter. What other tools or languages are you using in the DevOps part of the job?
Mm-hmm.
And which one of those kind of helps with collaboration with the rest of the team members?
Yeah, John, can we answer this question? Okay. So a lot of our
No, we just had a conversation about not talking about some technologies specifically. This is fine.
Okay. A lot of our software is actually coded in Perl, which is not a language that we're very
The old stuff is coded in Perl. The new stuff is mostly Python.
Yeah, the new stuff is mostly Python. And like,
So you got job security is what you're saying.
No, we're trying to make sure that's rewritten in Python. So that they have experience.
yeah, so that aspect requires a lot of communication, especially because it's something that we're not super familiar with. And so in that case, we usually reach out to John, who's the expert in Perl.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, here's people are on your guys' team, students or staff or faculty.
So there's 9 student security analysts and then 10 full-time staff members working in the CSOC specifically, but there are more people like associated with the information security office, so it's kind of like a level up.
How many endpoints do you guys deal with?
I would say probably basically anything that's connected to any device that's connected to like Secure, like student devices and like student accounts, and then also things connected to like the Ethernet in professors' instruments and things like that.
So they deal with anything that touches university networks.
You're talking tens of thousands.
We're talking tens of thousands.
Yeah.
So the CSOC is run by the students, but we have a lot of full-time staff to back them up. So we're overseeing what they're doing, we're helping them with them, we're mentoring them, we're acting with resources.
Yes?
So what are you, especially you as a senior, what do you think you're going to apply for? What's interesting you after going through this experience with data science and this?
Mm-hmm. So there's definitely like a question there of should I pursue something more with like data analytics, or should I pursue a career more in cybersecurity? And I think unfortunately data analytics is a little bit easier as a beginner in technology, because sometimes cybersecurity can be a little bit limiting, like in the types of certificates that jobs want, or the type of like experience that they need for maybe positions that I wouldn't think needed so much experience. But to answer like that specific question, I'm gonna do some I hope to do some internships along different lines and like see which I prefer best in terms of like the workplace and like the work-life balance.
I I think that the role here at the Information Security Office has definitely taught me how to keep my head up and open. I'm also kind of deciding about what I'm going to be doing going forward, but cybersecurity is now definitely one of those clear options. Though I've definitely learned and cemented here how to come from very little knowledge to a level of much higher comfort.
I got one more question for you. Now that you have gained all this knowledge and somebody offer you a job to be a security data analyst, what are the other things that you'll be looking for into that organization that you want to join? Is it the people? Is it work from home? What would be those other things that are attached to security, which are very important for us to build a career that you in the generation will be looking for? Do you have an idea? And if you don't have, that's just fine.
I've definitely appreciated the most the community in the office. I think that it's really important to have very strong relationships, especially ones between people that know more than you to where you are. I would definitely be very heavily looking towards a culture that was open and allowed for mistakes to be made with the intention that like learning is being done. That has been a very big aspect of me that I have, or aspect of the office that I have found here that has impressed me a lot.
Yeah, I totally agree with Gus. I think that teamwork is essential in cybersecurity, which is obviously apparent. And so having a team that you can communicate with and that's helpful and not like demanding you to know everything and getting upset if you don't is super essential. But in terms of like specific skills, I think we don't do much pen testing at all. So I think that would be something new and really interesting that I would love to learn more about in the future.
Nice. And what would you, like somebody like me who work for Intel, when I go back there, what do you want me to tell them? On your behalf.
I think I myself have a couple of applications in already, so if maybe you guys could look at those, that would be amazing.
I'll talk to him and we can see what you can get. I'm more than happy to be an advocate there.
Thank you.
Especially to get role models. I'm also in cyber, so I'm more than happy to be there to help you to get the mentors that can take you to the next level. So you're not alone.
Thank you.
Well, that would mean a whole lot. Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
Yes, just one. We have amazing students around the campus. What can we tell them about what you guys are doing so they can come and help us? What can we tell them?
Would you mind if I asked a clarifying question?
Yes,
What exactly do you mean by help? As in help the office or help themselves with security?
both. Really come and participate in cybersecurity and be aware and be ambassadors to tell the entire community, because we would like everybody to know what's going on so they can be more aware and be safe online and do all of those things.
I think you could definitely say something along the lines of that they're going to learn far more than they anticipated with a variety of topics. And I think people get intimidated by like, oh, I don't really know much about cybersecurity, but really, like we have a political science major who's a student security analyst, and so there's so many like areas where people's different majors can help cybersecurity and our CSOC office.
I'd love to answer that somewhat. Listening to them and what they got to experience in the world, and that would have seemed impossible while I was at school. To get that kind of exposure to get to talk to get to present things like this. I don't know if you really understand how unique that is and how growth that is. For you guys to come up and do this and get in front of us, I think is really impressive. So it might be every day we do that, but getting students to understand that, like this
Yeah.
is unique.
Yeah, essentially, really what I'm looking for is that peer mentoring. What can I tell them? I can tell them to come and talk to you. Is it okay?
Definitely.
I told some of them already, but
I think that the biggest thing to be aware of is just trying to demystify cybersecurity. when I've had conversations with my personal friends about my role, they're like, "Oh, that cybersecurity stuff. I don't know anything. I have the same password or whatever." Fair enough, but it is not that difficult to do maybe 4 very simple things to keep yourself safe. And I feel like that if you distill it down to easy talking points, almost like a sales pitch, it would be communicated pretty easily to people.
I want to help you a bit because I'm also a student, but I'm an executive student at the University of London. And I think the point you put across is what can we do? And I think we do have an opportunity. You and me, I think we could start, I would talk to our executive MBA student and maybe we could have a presentation as a starting point. So I'm there to help you if you do like that fasting and we can join him to see what we can do going further. Because the good thing with the executive MBA is most of these people, they're also working at the executive level in the organization. So they may also help you to understand how those organizations work. What do you think about that?
I think that'd be a really great opportunity. It seems it is important at the high level to be able to come up with ways to communicate to everybody. And I think that would be a program that I would be very interested in working with.
It's a good opportunity for them. Yeah. One of the earlier presentations from another person was about how you present yourself moving forward outside of your school area. And networking is very important to getting jobs and being successful. So I'm not pushing you guys. Just carry on your own momentum.
And I'm there to help you.
Are there any other questions? Yes, sir.
As a student, I kind of transferred there, so if I was interested in getting involved with like a similar position to you guys, or just like CSOC in general, like how would you recommend going about that?
I have heard that there will be more student positions opening soon. So are you aware of the Handshake website? If you kind of continually check that should be where our postings are. But you could definitely also come and probably talk to us afterwards. We can help you out.
And you also have 2 great resources right here. John and Duncan are full-time staff members in the CSOC. And so if you're interested, then they definitely will point you in the right direction.
All right, if there are no more questions, I think that we are done. Thank you guys very much.